Now, what is important is we have our guest with us, and after creating much suspense and mystery for the past week, everybody has been waiting with bated breath to talk to the man of the hour, the Tower of Power. Matt Ehret is a returning guest at Grand Theft World. You can find him over on MatthewEhret.substack.com, and you can also find his insights. And we're going to follow him on Twitter. He's over here on the Twitter. Yeah, I'm already following. Are you? Are you? That's the question. Matt, welcome back to Grand Theft World. How you doing?
Sorry, yeah, damn mute thing got me again. Yeah. Hey, Richard. Hey, Scott. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Are you on Central Time?
I am on Eastern Time, right below Montreal.
Oh, right on. Cool, cool, cool. So I appreciate you staying up late and being here. How'd your week go in the wood chipper with Kurt?
Yeah. That's always a non-linear dance, eh? Yeah, that was fun. No, Kurt's brilliant. He's I had only known him up until like maybe 3 months ago as the co-host. He does a great job of the Jimmy Dore show, and then when I started speaking to him on a show a couple times, I had no idea that his depth of knowledge is way deeper than 95% of the analysts out there as far as a sensitivity to the dark black magician operations bubbling under the surface of deep history, the psychology of cult creation, everything else. Like he's really well read. So, but he's also a super nonlinear comedian. So it's a bit difficult to keep to keep my feet from slipping sometimes.
If you go back and watch like his 2008 or 2010 or 2013 era where he's trying to fit into the mold that Hollywood has said, like, if you're going to do stand-up comedy, here's how it works. You got to do these things, right? And
Yeah.
I think he's like freeform. That new show he's got, Mystery Boys with Duncan, where they can just get into like, far out facts and stuff like that. But I also appreciate for you, it's like riding a bull.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or being
Glad you
dragged
caught
by
that.
the bull. Yeah, it's one of those metaphors. It's one
Yeah,
of
no,
those metaphors.
absolutely. And I think the just having the comedic instinct allows you to really see the absurdity. Like if you take things too literally in this kind of messed up topsy-turvy world, you won't be able to get at the heart of things. Whereas a comedian can generally see the big jokes and things where other people tend to like run up against the wall. So it does give you an edge if you've got some morality. If you don't, you can do a lot of damage with the art of humor, as we've seen the late night talk show comedians sort of control the zeitgeist through the hypnotic effects of comedy, which can create sort of like a magical alchemical sort of induction by getting people to laugh and then inflame their feeling of superiority over the other. Like we see in the schoolyards too, the cheap jokes taken at the kid. That one kid it will tend to cause everybody else to unthinkingly become bullies too in a mob. So if you have
I think
morality, this is a huge weapon.
Yeah, I think in society, as I was trying to picture the history chronologically of what you're describing, I would think like Saturday Night Live was a groundbreaking, like they can make people laugh and get them to be very political in a forum where they don't think they're being politicized at all.
Mm.
Right. And then the Daily Show like perfected that. And then that bled over to these other night shows like Jimmy Fallon and other Seth, I'm Not Funny, and those other people. Right.
Yeah.
So you can see where they try to copy it, but it's not as good as like Colbert, Daily Show, Jon Stewart model that they perfected in the early 20th century. I mean, they even had, do you own the book the Comedy Central put out called America? It was a history book. I
No.
bought that one time because I'm like, these guys are being edgy. Like, I should check out what's in this book. They had it at Barnes and Noble before I knew any better.
Right.
And
Well, I
yeah,
had the
that's an
Jon Stewart
artifact.
book, that big Jon Stewart book. Forgot the name of it. America. Shit, forgot. But he had a big one in Barnes Noble as well back in 2005 or so. And
That's what
yeah,
I'm talking
again.
about. Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh,
talking
that's the
about.
one. Yeah.
The
Of
history
course, that was
book.
everywhere. Okay, that was
Right.
Comedy Central. Okay.
It was common propaganda. It was everywhere, just right next to Howard Zinn and the
Right.
People's History of the United States. They're like this is how you, because they're saying people are realizing that like they're learning outside the schooling system. So let's set up another catch net, and they'll think
Yeah.
that's as far as it goes. Right.
Right.
Howard Zinn told you everything. If you didn't hear about it through Zinn or Chomsky, it didn't exist. Or if you didn't hear about it through the Daily Show, it doesn't exist. Right. And you take their perspectives because they're well put together because they spend a lot of time making it sound good.
Mm,
You don't have to do that with the truth.
right.
Or maybe you
Yeah,
do.
well, I know that Howard Zinn, Chomsky, all these guys, like so many people, I guess, from our path have kind of gone through that process at a certain point when you're trying to make sense of things, and develop a more critical analysis of the way the world really works, moving through the People's History of America stuff by Zinn and Chomsky's writings is sort of a natural place you'd go through until you kind of hit a brick wall when, again, they start dealing with their disdain for conspiracies and how incompetent it is and unscientific it is to look for conspiracies as a causal nexus behind why 9/11 happens or anything. There's disgusting quotes by Chomsky where he literally talks down to everybody who presumes that a conspiracy could be held accountable for 9/11. And that for me was a big breaking moment. I was like, no, there's something else. And then he had this whole thing too on the need for population control and how in a healthy society of the future we would all have like guardrails as far as telling people how many kids they should be allowed to have, like we would in a busy highway or a busy road system in a city. You know, you can't do it without street lights and signage. And he's like, that's how it should be for making babies too. Clearly. I mean, we are scientists, aren't we? And I'm like, well, fuck. Maybe there's something that that you're either lying or you got a blind spot that you haven't evaluated yet.
Well, I think the total information awareness logo is Scientia es Potentia, which is science is power.
Right.
So they wield it as a sword, and any other any other view that you might have is held in a pejorative conspiracy theory view
Yeah.
because it's not coming from the top, from the intelligentsia. You're not serving,
Yeah.
you're not playing their tennis game, right?
Yeah. Right.
Now,
Right.
you made that comment about conspiracy, and Chomsky, he did say stuff like that, right? Where did you first come into understanding of any type of conspiracy in history? Was it in school? Was it in at home? You heard some people talking about some stuff that went down that's
Okay.
off the like where to come in? Because I got Machiavelli over here. That's where I first learned it. I was like, oh, that's a
You
real
went straight to
thing. Yeah.
Machiavelli? Who taught you conspiracy? Okay.
That's
Really?
that's where I started this history blueprint in 2008 because somebody was challenging me on conspiracy. I'm like, I'm going to go learn the history of when it's used through warfare and history.
Mm,
And Machiavelli had entire chapters on how to use conspiracy in politics and stuff like that. I was like, well,
really?
I'm sure people know about this other than me. So there is
So
some
at that point,
legitimacy
and
to
I'm
the
not trying
history.
to run away from the question. I will address it. But up until that point in 2008, when you were doing that, you already had a show going at that point, or it was just
Oh
somebody at
yeah.
work? Yeah. Okay.
I podcasted for a couple years and I had a lot of the ideas like written down on paper and in notes and stuff like that. But I was looking for a way that was electronic that I
Yeah.
could like put it into something, hold the electronic attachments or place on the hard drive. And then with the web version, be able to share that with other people so they could do research. And so I always gave my online communities access to it so they could cruise around and it's
So was
grown
it
ever
already like
since.
from the get-go a political, critical podcast from the start before you started like reading Machiavelli and getting a better handle on how conspiracies work? Or
Well, my first podcast was 9/11 Synchronicity. So it wasn't really
right.
political. It was more like examination of the world. And the history blueprint, the official title is a comprehensive ontology of cognitive liberty. So it's
Mm,
following the history of people struggling with the ideas of philosophy of freedom versus tyranny and destruction.
mm, mm.
Let
Well,
me
for
see if I
me,
can
so
give you a date on Machiavelli. They used to have properties in here that you could click it open.
interesting. For for me, so before that, you were trying to explain these things from the standpoint of like this being like the effect of corruption and stupidity and sociological sort of explanations like that, like why 9/11 or why the wars were happening, or how were you thinking about it before you?
I didn't have enough context to understand that there had been a political advantage gaining type thing. Well, think back to when we go to school, right? In our upbringing, like blackmail and assassinations and a whole bunch of other ugly things are real things in the world of politics and warfare. But like, when are people exposed to that? Oh, like Hollywood movies, right? They'll show you a perspective.
Right.
Like, I didn't know. Like I'd seen The Godfather, but I didn't know the mafia was a real thing until I lived in New York City. And then the mafia is a real thing, right? There are still people
Right.
who participate in organized crime, and all the way from the guy who picks up your garbage all the way up the chain. Like that's all real stuff. Goodfellas, that's all real stuff. So that absence in our education, I think, is a big blind spot for people.
Mm,
And
absolutely. Well, I
yeah,
think that yeah, the fact that conspiracy is generally relegated to something that exists on the Hollywood film screen, on your TV, in a movie, in a show. It's not something in a comic book. Pinky in the Brain. You know, we're going to take over the world, Pinky, and that's what the brain's always doing every week in this Nickelodeon crap. So that's your idea of like this global nefarious conspiracy thing is something super mundane, absurd, for fiction alone. But then to think about, well, how do conspiracies actually work, and how do we think about the mind and matter? Because it's the mind matter question, right? That's really what conspiracy touches on. People who have thoughts and ideas and put them into motion about the way that they think the world should be for good and for bad. Oftentimes, the bad ones are a bit more sophisticated and enterprising and carrying it out. The good conspiracies tend to be not as well honed, not as well organized, not as good. The good guys that I've noticed historically who do disruptively positive things are not that good at creating durable institutions that are transgenerational, whereas the oligarchy and maybe their penchant for occultism might have something to do with giving them the edge of creating these multi-generational rituals and sacred myths that they can work on and pass down that somehow allow them a greater capacity to do transgenerational operations. They do think big. I mean, you read Blavatsky, right? You read some of these theosophical types who represent a kind of interreligious cosmology for the inner elite, for the or those who are self-professed elites. I hate calling them that, but it does represent a kind of cosmology or a religion of how they self-organize themselves, and it's very big. It's vast in terms of the mental space they create into the past. 70 billion million years in the past, into the future, and into. And then there's a lot of space for the imagination to move, to create constructs and space operas and, Gnostic, Archon, deities and elementals that they can like weave with their stories that they sell to their cult followers that then become kind of like life of their, like they take on a life of their own. It's very shamanic. But
well, part of that is as the empire expands, they take the things they learn in far off areas and they come back and embed those into the stories of people they don't know that they're getting taught about this other stuff. Like there's a big theosophy overlap with Fabian socialism. So there's a political movement and there's a religious kind of movement. The secret society aspect is part, antiquity and ancient pagan religions and these sort of things all wrapped up together. And then that's embraced in a very interesting, like it's on like the pro-Nazi side of Britain and Germany. There's a whole bunch of places that like kind of took that on. So you can kind of like see the intersection and seeding of these ideas and then social movements that are built upon those ideas until they come to some sort of culmination. But all the things that the theosophists put, for instance, it was Wallace who did the back of the dollar. That stuff's still on there. It hasn't been taken off of there, which tells me that power hasn't changed continuity because they would have put new signs up, like new establishment in there.
Yeah. Well, he's a devotee of Nicholas Roerich, right? And,
exactly.
That guy, if you read his writings on the fiery world, 1 to 3, and I was just reading them this morning, the fiery world, it's very Armageddonist cosmology, not that different from Alice Bailey as a Neocon.
And FDR's plane back then was called, was it Shambhala or the equivalent? What's the other one is called? I think it was the Shambhala.
Agartha Shambhala. His plane was called that? You said his plane or his plane? His plane.
His plane. Yeah.
Not Air Force One or something. It was called Shambhala.
They didn't have that back then. I'm pretty sure. Right.
That was actually what it was called, his plane.
Let's look it up. Scott, do you want to look it up?
Scott.
What's the name of FDR's plane?
Yes, I'm on it.
All right.
And if it's not Shangri-La, it might have been Shangri-La, Shambhala. It's one of those two.
Okay, Shangri-La, that didn't really come into the theosophy language, did it? I thought Shambhala was their big thing. Shangri-La thing, I thought that was, I don't know. All right.
I'm going to go with my first answer, but I'm phoning a friend. We should make this into a game show, dude. I was already thinking about bringing in debates and stuff like that for a while, but a game show aspect, we could get points. I've just been watching Doom Scrolling with Sammy Tripoli, and that thing, it saves you time because you can see some wacky stuff, but then you're out because there's a time limit and there's a little, that sort of thing.
Idea. I've got don't quote me on this. Don't hold me to this, but I've got 2 so far, according to the internet. It says the sacred cow and the Dixie Clipper.
The sacred cow?
That's what it says, hilarious. Dude.
That's kind of funny, actually. Okay.
Well, hold on. Well, let me do a little more research because it says these are the call signs for Air Force.
Oh, yeah, no, the name of FDR's plane.
Yeah.
I got notes. You want to see what I'm looking at? Does it show up? No, it doesn't show up. Why aren't the notes showing up? All right. Oh, it's not loading right there. All right. So I can't believe that what I'm seeing on my screen, I have all the words here, but it's not showing up when I put it on camera. So Let's see. All right, real quick, because Matt has the brain and he understands what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to say it. And if some of you guys, it's beyond your word count for right now, just hold on a second. During the 1930s, Wallace also engaged in an exchange of notes with Russian emigre artist and peace activist Nicholas Roerich, his wife Helena Ivanova, and some of the associates of the Roerich Museum in New York. Both Nicholas and especially Helena had developed their own brand of theosophy, which they called living ethics or Agni Yoga, fire yoga, which emphasized a common thread running through all religions. They're always about unifying for their new world order. Nicholas Roerich had been nominated for the Nobel Prize and invited to Herbert Hoover's White House. Wallace had met with Roerich in 1929, and Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt were also acquainted with him. So it's Roerich's design, I think, that goes down to Wallace putting on the all-seeing eye and pyramid on the dollar. Roerich, who styled himself a guru or teacher, designed the sets and co-wrote the scenario for Igor Stravinsky's 1913 avant-garde ballet, The Rite of Spring. During the 1920s, Roerich traveled to Tibet. But where's the part about Shambhala? Because it
Hold on,
was
just quick.
here. Go ahead.
Yeah, on Rourke, I was just taking some notes because I was just reading his Agni Yoga book on fire, the
All right.
fire in the world, or fiery world, and it's disgusting. Like he literally says, "How can consciousness become awakened without?" Uh, Damn, my handwriting sucks.
Uh,
uh, without a cataclysm, without striving for a change, without the present mode of life. Of course, the builders, which is like the ascended masters, are carrying the entire burden of what takes place. And it is essential to realize that the Battle of Armageddon is great and that all constructive manifestations for the great plan are likewise great. It may be asked, is it impossible to do this without cataclysms? Is it impossible to be without terrors and calamities? Oh, is it possible to be? Is it impossible? Is it is it possible to be without terrors and calamities? It is impossible to be without miseries. The forces of light are solicitous about the great fiery transmutation, very alchemical language. Thus,
Phoenix
on the way to
rituals.
the fiery world, one should bear in mind that in the time of Armageddon, a purification of space takes place. And then he goes on in depth to talk about who can make it to the top of this mountain. Only a few will be able to like live through this fire. The rest who don't make it, and the way that you qualify to make it to the peak, where you can be like an enlightened person who will survive the fire, so called, uh, as he calls, he who will not accept the fiery baptism, who will not follow the origin of the light, will depart into the chaos of dissolution. One may observe the moral stinking and affirm that only the fiery world offers the needed purification. And he says it's only those uh, who can't break away from the attachments of everyday life, like the belief in good and evil. Those are the ones who will be destroyed if you can't break away from attachment. Like it's this disgusting Gnostic Buddhist thing. But yeah,
Was
like
the
knowing that
phrase
this guy had an influence.
chaos
Hmm?
of dissolution that you just read?
This was that?
The
That was
phrase
from
you just read
oh
a phrase. Was
yeah.
it chaos of dissolution? Did I write it down properly?
No, it was the ascending spirit must constantly bear in mind the necessity to break away from the attachments of everyday life. Oh, I see. I see. It was in the previous page. Yeah, the chaos of dissolution. Yeah.
All right, cool. That's a future GTW episode title. I needed that.
Yeah, and this guy's like at the heart of like a lot of the abstract art movements, like the data movements, the abstract art, modernist, all that stuff in the 20s. His master tower in New York is like one of the earliest influences of like disseminating the cult of ugliness in art, which he says like art is the only thing that can like save mankind because art is for everybody. And he has this nice language that I agree with on theoretical basis. But then when you look at like what his idea of actual art is that should be promoted, it's like super hyper like Russian like cosmist symbolic. It's like this symbolic movement, and it's very deconstructive
Like
oriented towards
Rasputin
abstract.
type stuff?
I never saw Rasputin stuff, but the symbolist movement in Russia is like really what he's promoting, or what came in Canada at the same time of the Group of Seven, who were all these oligarchists who like despised humanity, who became like the godheads of the Canadian art scene in the early 20th century, and they were doing the same thing in around Rurik, what he was promoting as well. And Yeah, the earliest abstract art exhibits are happening at his galleries in the United States.
I was looking to see if there was any connection between Shambhala and the origin of the word. And Scott looked up the FDR, Shangri-La, Shambhala. And I think it comes from James Hilton's book, Lost Horizon, is what Scott was putting in the notes. Scott, did you have
Oh,
more on
well, that
that?
was the movie, Capra's movie.
Right.
Yeah, 1936. And Capra was, I think, also seduced. Even though Capra did some good moral movies that I think he was intervening on the Satanists taking over Hollywood, he still had this weak spot like Wallace did. Like, I don't think Wallace was like an esoteric inner initiate of the real like dark teachings of the shit. I think he was still on the outward uninitiate, like the lower level,
Yeah, there's like Rourke, and then there's Wallace and FDR and people who are in that coterie milieu.
yeah, and I think that like most theosophists have no clue what the esoteric section actually believes, that it's the opposite game. So I think that a lot of these guys, they see a lot of the light life good stuff, and they kind of get attracted to that creative kind of like, let's all have this upward elevation of consciousness stuff. And they don't know, they haven't really thought about what the what the inside out game is. So I presume that Capra, who, again, if you see his Capra's movies, they're generally very good, and he's like really intervening on the moral rot within Hollywood, within the culture. And then there's that one freaking movie in '36, which is celebrating the Rurik. A pilot crashes in Tibet, finds this world where people don't, they've cured death in I guess Shambhala, and yeah, it's total propaganda for theosophy.
Yeah, it's like Tibetan Book of the Dead Buddhism type stuff.
Yeah.
But Capra also after that in the World War II, he's doing propaganda films for Uncle Sam, right? But then he made It's a Wonderful Life. So you gotta, judge
Yeah, and
each
there's State of the
message.
Union too is a thing. Hey, but he kind of like it broke him. I think the whole thing just broke him being in that environment. Uh, there's like, well, like, and then the last couple of movies he did are like, pillow talk, Rock Hudson type things, like Doris Day, like that kind of like banal shit that to brainwash housewives and just promote a
And then
culture of
Kubrick said,
degeneracy.
I'm not going out like that. And he made Eyes Wide Shut.
Well, I don't know. I'm not convinced that he was not in on the dark magic.
Oh, that's a fascinating hypothesis. Do you have any evidence? What do you got?
Well, it's not something I've done the deep dive yet, but
Did you
he
see a
did have.
documentary that gave you a compelling view? Because I think I've
Well,
seen
I
most
was
of
looking
them.
at his association.
Kubrick's
Yeah, I remember
Odyssey.
watching.
Yeah.
What go? I didn't mean to talk over you.
Jay
Go ahead.
Widener's, there's a whole bunch of different Kubrick documentaries, mockumentaries, and things like that. So I've considered a lot of different hypotheses. I don't have a working one that's this is definitely it. But
Yeah.
I do think from his reclusion in later years that he had gotten real close to power and decided he's going to do his thing over here now.
He was friends with this head of the Order of Saturn, this OTO Saturn cult in the United States, and he was very close friends with this absolute hard Satanist who's like overlapping the Process Church of Final Judgment. I'm forgetting the name. Like it's been quite some time since I had encountered this information, so I'd have to revisit and we could like circle back. The other thing that kind of got me a little bit is I guess some of the archetypical structures embedded within some of his storylines. Not just like the Arthur C. Clarke, the choice to like do what he did to the Arthur C. Clarke story. And Arthur C. Clarke, in my mind, is one of the top black magicians. The Sir Grand Commander of the British Empire, Arthur C. Clarke, and his stories. If you read his books, like they provide the guidebook on what the big magic trick is really going to be to corral
For
humanity
for Elon
into what.
Musk and Peter Thiel and all the guys that we just saw clips about. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree. Tell me
yeah, yeah,
more.
yeah. So, his 2001 Space Odyssey just has so many of their core religious tropes that they want to infuse into the zeitgeist about the nature of man, AI, the future singularity, and so also his How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb has so many, again, it's almost like a guidebook as far as showcasing the different art. And they use archetypes. They use these Jungian archetypes for their fictional their creation of the fiction and how they deploy it. And I just get the sense that the type of personality, this is what, 1962 or something, or 63 is the How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. But like the personality of the patriotic American general who is obsessed with the commies, the demon shape-shifting commies who are out to steal their bodily fluids, and who kind of like goes renegade and represents kind of like a one man army shooting up the military in a civil war, basically that over dovetails the end of the world as we know it. I feel
And
like that
didn't he
kind
give
of
authority to Slim Pickens, or was that George C. Scott that does that? Who
I don't
authorized
know.
Slim Pickens? Yeah,
I don't know
that's a good
who did that.
question.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about
But
that.
your point is taken about that's late '60s though that movie. Let's go back. Do you remember what Kubrick's first movie was?
Spartacus. Well, I know oh, that was the other thing I didn't like about Spartacus is that I liked the movie Spartacus, but it was Trumbo who wrote it, and Kirk Douglas was saying in an interview that because Trumbo was still on the blacklist.
Dalton
And,
Trumbo had to write under a different name if he was going to write because they tried to ruin
yeah,
him. Yeah.
and Kirk Douglas at the time he still had some integrity, and he said because he was like financially backing the movie being built, and he just said like if you guys don't put Trumbo's name on the credits, then I'm out. And and he was saying that Kubrick was actually more than happy just to take credit for the movie. And Kirk Douglas said, "Oh, you didn't write it though. Like, how could you sleep at night if you had nothing to? You didn't write the movie. Like, so that also said a little bit about his character. But what came before that was, yeah, it was a war movie. Forget what it was though.
Oh, I know the answer, but that's not the. So I'm trying to get to. So maybe it's his third movie. I was trying to point out Lolita, the Nabokov
Oh,
novel adaptation.
no way! He did a
Yeah,
Lolita.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Lolita is a Kubrick film, and Nabokov and his cousin are both up into British Anglo-American intelligence. You know, here's Kubrick right here. So yeah, so he adapted Nabokov. I'm pretty sure. I don't have it in the model
Yeah,
efficiently,
Lolita.
but
There you
what
go.
I but
19. Yeah, you're right.
okay, do I have it?
1962. Yeah,
Okay, so check this out, dude.
he's the director.
I'll
Yeah.
show you. I'll show you, but first I'll explain it to you. So I'm mapping out Stanley Kubrick because, like, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a researcher, and there's like Venn diagram overlap. So I'm mapping them out, and what I discovered was this: starting, it's like soon as his career starts, he gets surrounded by guys who are British MI6 special operations executive guys, like special operations executive guys. So his cinematographer, Sir Kenneth Ken Adam, all these guys have various pieces of experience that go back to like World War II and
Hmm.
SOE. And so when you start putting together that, so I think Kubrick, being an American, was not read into some of the things he was being surrounded by from the get-go. Because like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, that's Ian Fleming who wrote a children's book, but he's also a British spy in America, making sure Americans get on the side of the British instead of the Germans. And so there's like a coterie, not a cabal, with a conspiracy, but a group of guys that all worked on some secret stuff during World War II. And then when they go civilian, they're in like media, publication, film. They're doing all the C.D.
Yeah,
Jackson,
yeah,
Charles Douglas Jackson type stuff. And so
yeah.
Lolita,
Right.
because of the content and the Jeffrey Epstein like content of Nabokov's novel, and it's pretty graphic thing for back then. And the fact that Nabokov also had a cousin that was also working with MI6 and CIA and Norman Pearson and the guys that are running MI6, John Cecil Masterman. So it just shows you
Hmm.
like wartime, they're doing one thing, and peacetime, they're doing the same thing. It's just given different names, it looks like. It's
Yeah.
psychological warfare operations, propaganda. All these same guys were involved in kind of both.
Yeah,
C.D.
absolutely.
Jackson during war is running psyops for Nelson Rockefeller and Eisenhower, and over here he's running Fortune magazine and Time Life
And
and
then
holding
he's
the
buying
Zapruder
up
film.
the yeah, he's buying up the Zapruder film. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
burying it in a vault. And
and
then
he's
then
in a Billy Wilder World War II movie when Frank Capra and Billy Wilder, like Hollywood guys, and John Huston were out there making movies to make Uncle Sam look good. C.D. Jackson's in one of those famous videos.
is he? Yeah, and yeah,
Oh
Gene
yeah,
Wilder too. He's like getting pulled into some Roald Dahl, right? Like Willy Wonka. So
Roald
Roald
Dahl.
Dahl is
Yeah,
also like British intelligence to the
right.
wazoo.
Yeah, David
But CD
Ogilvy
Jackson
from
too. Like this
America.
guy's also into
Yeah,
the UFO psyop, right? Like CD Jackson is part of a major runner of the UFO of the was it the national the NISAP, the Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon. So they're like the biggest civilian UFO investigations group. He's like one of the steering committee guys who's and the director of that at the same time, you know, and
Are
so it's
you
like
talking about the same Charles Douglas Jackson who during World War II ran
yeah,
psychological operations and like sent the first people into the camps to take pictures and write about what was going on? It's
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
Did he have
yeah,
any
who would've thought?
did he was he a friend of JFK or not?
No, fucking way.
No.
No, I think these guys.
You don't think so? You don't
They
think
might
so?
have been polite together. I mean, but I don't think that he was friends with. I mean, Alan Dulles thought he was friends with JFK because he was friends with the JFK family, or the Kennedy family, and knew JFK when he was a kid, and he would go to visit, you know, JFK's dad, and he thought that he had a pretty good handle and could just manage this kid who he just thought he had a very kind of one-dimensional ideas, like a simple-minded playboy, saw himself as a war hero, and he could be stage managed pretty easily by the wise and savvy oracle himself, you know, Dulles. And then he didn't realize that JFK was developing his own thinking as well. And
Well, Dulles is coming from, he had three people in his family that they were like Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, you know, Secretary of State type people.
right.
So he was groomed into that position. JFK's dad is a bootlegger turned ambassador. Our ambassador to England is an Irishman. What's the problem with that? English hate the Irish. So there was a thing there already, right? But they had to accept him. So during that time, JFK is like doing his degree work, and he travels all over Europe. And he wrote a paper. There's a book. I have it someplace. I think it's like Why We Fight. It might be called, or
Profiles in
Why We
Courage, or Profiles in
No,
Courage?
it's before that. I think it's before that. So it's basically his observation of the Anglo-American establishment before he stepped into politics. And it's an interesting read. But my point would be the people who funded the Nazis and got away with it, Nelson Rockefeller, David Rockefeller, that whole lineage down through Allen Dulles and Truman and Eisenhower and C.D. Jackson, those are all the same people that stood to lose from JFK. And if they were blackmailed into giving Israel votes in 1947, what kind of leverage did they have by 1963 when Kennedy's trying to get rid of Dimona? So there's a whole Anglo-American Israeli establishment connection to that situation, just given the cover up of the Nazis and the blackmail ability of Nelson Rockefeller.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, on I don't know if you want to go. There's so many different directions we could go.
No, we could talk Palantir. We could talk surveillance.
I mean, dude,
we could talk whatever.
Yeah.
We could talk China.
Yeah, you know, well, you brought up Gladio. You bring up the Nazis that were, you know, C.D. Jackson was playing a role in the Operation Gladio. So was like, what's his name? Head of NATO, former U.S. Head of the Joint Chiefs. Lemnitzer.
Well, I was going to say Richard.
Lyman Lemnitzer.
Lemnitzer. Yeah, the Operation Northwoods memo.
Yeah,
author.
But you know, exactly. Yeah, and he's the head of the Joint Chiefs.
He's the guy that Kubrick mimics in Doctor Strangelove.
Well, I think it's a bit of a composite character, right? It's a bit of a composite of.
Lemnitzer
oh, you mean the bodily fluids guy, or you mean the
the bodily fluids guy, or maybe it's the George C. Scott character, one of those two. But Lemnitzer was, you know, famous for a lot of things, not just Operation Northwoods.
It's an interesting idea that he could have used Lemnitzer Lemnitzer did seem to be like a true believer in the naive one-dimensional commie conspiracy back in those days, and is it possible that he could have believed that they're also like alien shapeshifters out to steal your bodily fluids the way it's possible. I mean, but what I was going to say about that was that JFK was dealing with such a friggin' viper's nest. It blows my mind. And you know, it wasn't just that he didn't renew the contract of Lemnitzer. He basically fired Lemnitzer because he was
and he fired Dulles.
Yeah, I mean, and Charles Cabell, the second fan of the CIA, and Richard Bissell as well.
Cabell's brother is the Dallas police chief, bro. What a coincidence!
No, exactly, and exactly. It's too convenient, it's too perfect. Of all the positions you could have as a police chief of any city, it happens to be Dallas. Yeah, right.
And Oswald just gets shot in the garage and nothing to see. But good. You're saying Dick Bissell or Helms?
Yeah. Richard Bissell. Yeah. Dick Bissell. Yeah, Dick Bissell. Yeah, right. And so this guy is like also the head of like Assassinations International, like the Office of Policy Coordination is like at the nerve center of psychological warfare, assassinations with Sidney Gottlieb. Like this guy's also running, he's setting up Area 51 and 55. He's running Area 51 as like the place where they're testing out experimental aircraft, that they got
You
from
know
the
what else?
Nazis.
You know what else Bissell did? Bissell ran so Bissell, do you think he's friends with JFK or not?
I don't think JFK, I think he fired him for a reason.
Okay, so JFK fires Bissell. The guy you just fired, dude, right? Because JFK's young. He's like what? He was like 40 or something. I don't know. He's young. He just fired this guy. Rightfully so. You're the president of the United States. Fire who you want. What did the guy do before? Oh, he runs assassination teams. Oh, he runs Operation 40, guys. He runs assassins. Did you know there's an Operation 40 assassin that's a doorman at John Lennon's crime scene?
No.
His name's like Jose Perdomo, and he's an Operation 40 assassin that worked with these guys and a couple other guys that are still around.
When you say Operation 40, what does Operation 40 assassin mean?
Oh, dude, please. Okay, so
yeah.
Operation 40, Operation Zapata, Bay of Pigs, these are they're not simultaneous, and there's one more operation. But if you look at this mosaic and who's involved and what's going on, you'd say, oh, these guys could work on. Oh, here's the guy that shot John Lennon. And he worked for this guy, Felix.
What's his name? I can't make out his name.
Jose Sangenis Perdomo, according to this article that I could bring up over here. And if archive.org brings it up, we'll have the title. On the 25th anniversary of John Lennon's assassination, imagine. And I know this journalist, he passed away, but I've met and worked with him in the past. And he has a stellar breakdown showing. There was Operation Mongoose, Operation 40, and there were like the people who were on the power side, America side, during 9/11. They were like people who were around cutting their teeth back in these operations, and then they slowly gained power over a couple generations. So Operation 40 is one such CIA operation. So there's Mongoose and there's Operation 40. So let's pop open 40 over here and let's go to the Wikipedia. Operation 40 was a code name for a top secret Central Intelligence Agency sponsored counterintelligence and counterinsurgency group composed of CIA officers and anti-Castro Cuban exiles. So I'm not saying Cubans were involved, but a lot of people would say Cubans were involved. And I would say, well, then that still leads back to the CIA. And the failed Bay of Pigs is why Dulles ends up getting. And then look, they were involved in cocaine and heroin smuggling. Right. And then you start getting into like, who were these people and what were they used for? And you notice that they're still around after they all rise to power after JFK's assassination too, by the way. But a lot of them, when you go back in their history into CIA and OSS, they have other ties and allegiances that are built up throughout the years. So really, it's like studying each of these people through history when you're trying to figure out any of these types of situations, right? Castro, Bay of Pigs. You don't know anything about it. So you start reading about it. And then there's people, places, things, and events that happen in that. And you got to open all those tabs and read all those things. And I just found it better once upon a time to organize those things so I could find them quickly. Otherwise, they're not useful if you can't marshal the information.
Amen, brother. One of the things that I find interesting too, and I've noticed this more, it became more clear as I began making the current film series I've been doing, the Hidden Hand Behind UFOs. I began with my wife in 2023. We've done 4 episodes. We're going to do like 8. Is that
different from this latest film you got right here?
This is kind of like the unofficial episode 5 of the series. This one's not really directly on UFOs specifically, but I had to tell this story in order to get at the official episode 5 of what it's going to be.
So that looks like Himmler and Thule Society type stuff. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because all of the UFO cults that gave rise to the entire movement after World War II, when it was right in 1947 that people started seeing weird shit flying up in the skies, and it's not a coincidence that that's right after World War II has just ended, and a bunch of unreconstructed Nazis are being reconfigured and retrofitted to go and basically dominate every lever of power and influence you could imagine in the post-war world, right? And that's the moment that you have all of a sudden these sightings at a time when we've just absorbed a big chunk of Nazi aerodynamic aircraft and other things from the Italians and the Nazis who were doing work on alternative approaches to aeronautics, involving also flying saucers, Flugscheibes, as they call them. And that was being absorbed, and people were looking out their windows, not understanding what they were seeing. They didn't, people in the military didn't have the clearance security-wise to be vetted and to be told what it was that they were looking at when they looked out their windows. So an aura of mystique was built up around which this new myth could be then woven to tell people what they're seeing, which is like beings from another, planet or universe or whatever. And a lot of the Nazis, like if you look at the Theosophists who were like running these big pro-fascist cults all across America during the 1930s, it's all like Theosophists of the 20s who are channeling messages from Saint Germain and Master Moria and Jwar whatever. They're all like just bullshit channelers, right? Just running their own little cults in the 20s and into the early 30s. And then they all of a sudden become, or a big chunk of them become very pro-fascist, like William Dudley Pele with his silver shirts, but he's still receiving like, oracular messages from the ascended masters. He's tied in with the I Am movement with Guy and Edna Ballard. Like Edna Ballard is like running seances, teaching and running Pele study groups with her devoted followers. So there's like these overlaps left and right. And George Adamski also has his own like Tibetan Royal Tibetan Lodge in California out of this big mansion. They all have these big mansions that are being donated by the upper crust blue bloods of the United States, right, for them to like operate out of. And then they all become, by 1947, so many of them are becoming UFO gurus, describing these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan Teutonic super beings from Venus who are coming and visiting them, building up a new mythos, which at first seems kind of fringe and goofy, but you just see the bubbling undercurrents of what is built up in the fringe, often over a generation or two, becomes increasingly mainstream. So they've been nudging this whole thing towards becoming the architecture of a new world religion, in my mind. So if you look at a lot of the people who are in play, especially over the past 30 years in the UFO disclosure psyop, so many of them were directly involved in murdering JFK and covering up his murder. Like there's a big list. It wasn't just C.D. Jackson. It was Georgia de Morgenschild.
George de Mohrenschildt, Dimitri de Mohrenschildt. I'll show you those because that's interesting because we have their notebooks. They have H.W. Bush's number in the notebook and stuff, bro. It's in his own handwriting, de Mohrenschildt. But also there's William S. Paley from CBS. He was in War and worked right with C.D. Jackson and Eisenhower and Nelson Rockefeller and all these other people, right? So it's like that once you start to get multiple points, you can start to see the picture and put together like what is the thing, right? But when you see a couple stars, it's not a big deal. But when you see, there's the outline of Orion, now you can find direction because of the multiple points of data, right?
Yeah, triangulation. Good old triangulation. Because you're not going to always get smoking guns on a lot of things. Sometimes you will, but oftentimes in this kind of research you won't. So you got to triangulate on a variety of data points that may not seem directly part of the same thing, but you got to people have to learn how to use their mind to triangulate in on the critter, which is what they're pursuing of the truth, right? Of where does the conspiracy network lie? What do they want? What do they believe? How do they work? But yeah, Mohrenschildt was like, he was eliminated right before he could testify at the Assassinations Committee in 75 or 76.
Yes.
He died like a day before.
Now, what I'm about to show you, I have the author from whom I learned this, and I'll read it to you. But this is an example of this guy was around before the internet. He had done all this research. I bought his research off of eBay. I started corresponding with him at some point. His name was Bruce Campbell Adamson, and this is JFK research because he had de Mohrenschildt's notebook. And I was like, bro, can I see it? What's up? And looks like this. Now, George de Mohrenschildt also has a cousin, Dimitri, or a brother. I forget which it was. So de Mohrenschildt gets suicided. Okay. Mm. He has connections to Jackie Bouvier. He's connections to Zapruder. He has a nephew that's the roommate of George H.W. Bush at Phillips Andover Academy, the Intel spook school. Okay. De Mohrenschildt did work for MI6. De Mohrenschildt had connections to Clint Murchison Sr., who's the Texas bigwig that was working with LBJ and all the people in Texas that wanted to kill him, because there was like a laundry list of people who wanted to kill Kennedy and a laundry list of reasons to kill Kennedy. But it came down to, bad pun, triggering events that happened that year that they're like, we're no longer going to ride on maybe. It's going to be a done deal. De Mohrenschildt's part of the Odessa network, so that's Nazis post-World War II. And he's part of the this Buckley family oil from William
Mm.
F. Buckley. He has ligatures into that because that connects to Zapata oil connections, which is back
Oh,
to
there you go.
CIA and the guys who killed Kennedy and the guys who funded the Nazis. They're all the same guys, which are
Yeah.
also, this is Operation 40. You had just asked about that.
Mm.
Zapata Oil and Bush's front company for the CIA with Lolo Sotoro. Well, that might be, I might have to put that on the side because I think Lolo comes later. But anyway, the rest of these guys, that's solid because that's history. Operation 40, having this group that was also tied into heroin and cocaine trafficking. So let me bring the point full circle. You were just talking about 1947, July 4th, 1947, Roswell event. Well, also in 1947, you got the creation of the National Security Act right after that. Then you have the creation of the CIA right after that. And the guy who created the National Security Act, Clark Clifford, later in the 1980s was found guilty of, he's working with BCCI, Bank of Commerce and Credit International, on narco terrorism trafficking stuff.
Really?
They're smuggling money. So there's like a 40-year continuity of what they hide behind national security, and it ain't aliens at that point.
Mm.
Now, if you want my conspiratorial side, this is what I would say if you know, it's the Mystery Boys podcast. Roswell is these tech companies and military industrial contractors of the future being threatened, and their survival way was to send their tech back in time. They couldn't send humans back in time or robots back in time, but they could send, what does it take to make take a transistor and make a silicon chip back in time. So they send a message to themselves some way, somehow. They send some material science that could be reverse engineered and give them a 40-year jump on legit technology, and it would change the world, right? And so you might be in the middle of someone invented something in the future and the effects come back to wherever they implemented it and everything in between. And that's not constitutional government either. So there's lots of things on the radar we could watch out for, but it doesn't change what I have to do this week.
Yes. Yes. Well said.
Me-
Well said. Like I think that
So
the
let's talk about
intersection
your
of-
new movie. Let's talk about your new movie because you said that was just
Okay,
like the
sure.
kind of teaser. But what's the overall undertaking? When did you start it? Has it outgrown like the plan for it? And now it's into two things. Is there a sequel? What's the deal?
Yeah, well, it kind of came from two directions at the same time. For the past couple of years, we've been doing, like I mentioned, this series of films on the hidden hand behind UFOs to sort of map out the intelligence agencies that have been like managing the stage of this multi-generational, what I think of increasingly as a Rosicrucian magic trick, with the idea of creating the foundations of a new, more controlled set of shadows for the religious cave that people are expected to fit inside around alien gods. And people like Carl Jung, Alan Dulles were directly at the top and at the foundation of this entire thing. And in episode 3, we get into a little bit of the Alan Dulles, Carl Jung collaboration around setting up the new sacred myths, to define the new origin stories for humanity. And this is back in the early 50s. I mean, Dulles was already employing Jung as an OSS agent, and he continued to be his advisor into the 50s when he was writing the flying saucers, things seen in the sky. And they're using different tricks that are basically already that have been like incubated in the spiritualist movement seance groups of the 19th century, as far as, more updated radar blipping, things like that, or radar spoofing as it's called, to make radar operators believe that they're seeing things that are moving a lot faster than they really are. And a big chunk of the testimonials was coming from radar operators. This is a whole line of the secret science program coming out of the Manhattan Project. And a lot of this always has occultists and occultists that were very tied into the Nazi SS high command, including Dulles, who was stationed in Bern, right, in Switzerland, which is an occult nerve center. There's a reason why Switzerland is always neutral. And it's not just that they don't want to get in fights. There's something else going on.
When do you have Dulles in Bern, Switzerland? Do you know what years?
During World War II, he's destroying I thought it was the entirety of World War II, but it might have been towards the end.
I don't think that's his first time there. From the way
World
that
War I, he was already in there, right?
John
Yeah,
Loftus told me that during World War I, they got him to sleep with a German secretary or something, and then the British caught him, and the British said, "You're our guy, and you're going to go to the Versailles Conference, and you're going to make all this stuff work." And ever since, like, he was their guy. So he couldn't have done something like a Kennedy assassination without permission from on high.
Yeah, no, I think that he was initiated into some dark magic stuff back in World War One, as were many. And yeah, like you said, this area around Switzerland, and it does come up in the documentary, the Black Sun Rising film. But Switzerland is has, as Alice Bailey had even made this point that it was the center of the European Black Mass, or the Black Mass of Central Europe in the Middle Ages. It was a zone of Templarism. A lot of the Templars that went underground made areas of Ascona, Monteverita, their hub where a lot of witchcraft was centered. There's many, I mean many. There's a handful of these occult centers, but that was a big one, and that's the very area of Monteverita where Bakunin made his occult, anarchist occult. Cent- it's a stew, right? Monteverita that Mikhail Bakunin had set up in the 1880s becomes like the parent for Bohemian Grove in America. It's like where Aleister Crowley, Rudolf Steiner, everybody is like there for decades and decades, and that's the zone where the Eranos conferences are set up by Carl Jung and Alice Bailey's disciple, Frobe Ulga Frobe Kobe, whatever her stupid name is. But she's like a leading theosophist and an initiate of the Arcane School, and they set up this Eranos thing in order to basically create the foundations for rewriting all of human civilization. And this is the time when Jung is still the president of the German Psychiatric Association, so his ideas are feeding directly into Goebbels' understanding of how to manipulate the psyche of the German, Volk. And he's doing this all the way up until 1939, directly in that position. Alan Dulles completely erases all of the records of World War II on Dulles, on Frobe. Dulles just destroys everything and then recreates from scratch in 1945 a new story of the great hero Carl Jung, and what a great service he did for freedom. But it's like we only have Alan Dulles' words to go on. And why are we believing Alan Dulles, who seems to himself kind of be Nazi in his own heart and mind? So anyway, we kept on brushing up against this thing, and then we said, well, let's just make a documentary on this, because it does seem like there is a rehabilitation of Hitler going on. There's Stu Peters films that are getting pumped, and Nick Fuentes getting pumped, and Europa. So there's a lot of things that are making Hitler seem increasingly in the minds of conspiracy-minded people as if he were the good guy of World War II. And I see a trap. I see some nudging, some social engineering going on. And so I figured it was time that we just deal with this question of, well, what was the inner religion of the SS? What is the Thule Society? What was the Ahnenerbe? What was Himmler doing in Wewelsburg Castle? And how does this all tie into the esoteric section of the Theosophists and the Hermetic Court of the Golden Dawn? And the Crowleyites, who are running like spycraft in World War I all the way up into World War II, and Ian Fleming. So how does the Oswald Mosley network overlap with Crowley and Hitler, which it does?
How does Fleming's family history in the opium trade overlap with Fleming writing about the British Empire dominating the world through James Bond and ameliorating itself with the American audience? And gee, if the CIA could just catch up with that, James Bond would be okay. Hey, since you know about since you know about the stuff you know about, and I know about stuff like that, I got to ask you this. Do you know about this dude, Ludwig II of Bavaria? Because mysteries, schools, secret societies, Freemasonry, castles in Bavaria before the Germans, this guy was all into Wagner and the Holy Grail and the whole deal. So his castle is Neuschwanstein. He had 13 castles. Okay. One of them is Neuschwanstein that they make the Disney castle out of, right? So, and they used to use that castle for Freemasonic rituals. Okay, because Ludwig II was all Freemasoned up, right? So he had this all going on. Now, he got assassinated by a conspiracy, oddly enough. And here's how that worked. He's Ludwig II of Bavaria. He had a dad. He inherited his crown. And he, at one point, develops the plans for a flying vehicle. Okay. Now, recently in history, like the U.S. Navy or someone verified his plans could have been built and the thing might have worked. So there was real reason for his competitors back then to panic. And so they conspire and they get together and they're like, we got to get rid of crazy Ludwig. They brand him as crazy, and they drown him in Lake Geneva in Switzerland. So it's conspiracy and the Swiss all tied up right there in a little bow with Freemasonry, secret societies, Thule Society, all that good stuff. So please, continue.
Yeah,
and I know you have.
Do we have any drawings or drafts of the designs of what this flying device would have been? Like a propellers, or was it like a Da Vinci thing, or a Orville Wright kind of proto plane, or what was this?
I'm gonna pull up more reference than I had, and I'll add it to the blueprint. So Scott, cover me for a second.
Okay, and no rush. I mean,
no, we're doing it live, dude. This is how we do it. That's
fascinating because you often don't hear of cases of royals getting assassinated. It doesn't happen that often, especially ones who kind of seem to be eyeballs deep in weirdness like this guy. Scott, what do you think of this?
Yeah, man. Well, I was gonna say that I was watching the film you have on your Substack, and it's really interesting, and I think we're entering into a dangerous phenomenon where, like, dude, okay, there's this guy named Keith Woods who's kind of in that Nick Fuentes kind of sphere. I know they're buddies, and he did like this, I can't remember if it's Substack or whatever, but he likes debunking that Europa movie. And it's like, I started watching that movie out of curiosity, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Because like there was some stuff I was like, hold on now. And it's like easily debunkable stuff. But it's like the whole purpose of the movie is to incite anger, really, I think. Like just to like escalate things. You know what I mean? And so even though it's not factual, like it feels good. It's like you're telling me things that make me feel good in a certain way. Like if you're the type of person that's watching that movie, then it's gonna push all the right buttons to make you feel good, but it's factually like inaccurate, or maybe like making conclusions that aren't necessarily based on evidence or reality or anything like that. But it is interesting because I did hear, like, even from the right, from kind of that side, you know, doing critiques and criticisms of that movie itself too. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's dangerous because you hear everybody. It's almost like you can hear somebody say, "Oh, have you watched Europa?" And it's like, okay, well, I know where you're at in the continuum of all this conversation. Yeah, it's like, okay,
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have discovered something just a few seconds ago, and I had such a hard time not interrupting you guys and like waiting for us to pull off at the rest stop. But I gotta release something here. So we talked about Ian Fleming earlier tonight and the children's book he wrote, right? But that's not what I was looking up. I was looking up to see if Ludwig II of Bavaria had a legit idea. But watch this. Okay, Ludwig of Bavaria flying car. Ludwig II of Bavaria designed a fleet of steam-powered flying cable cars more than 2 decades before the Wright brothers' first flight, but his plans were rejected and he was declared insane in 1886. Modern aeronautical experts have analyzed his sketches and confirmed that the designs, which resembled peacock decorated flying cable cars, so they're flying cable cars, were technologically sound and would have worked. Ludwig intended to use these aircraft to travel across the Bavarian Alps to his various castles, including Neuschwanstein. So that's a thing. That's a history thing, right? But then I scrolled down because I don't just read the top. I scrolled down. What else is going on here? The Guardian, Mad Ludwig's flying car was a smart idea. 2006. Okay, cool. That's about the time I learned about this, back in 2006, and they recirculated it in 2017 more recently. But watch this, dude.
Somebody built it. Somebody actually constructed it.
No, dude. What does this say? Why is this in the search history? Chitty chitty bang bang, bro.
Because they're hearing you speaking. Your computer is listening.
No. So I thought about it. What is it? What's it there for?
Oh, because there's a flying car. Okay.
Score. Look at that. So maybe that's where Ian Fleming got the fucking idea for the children's book, because he's in the secret society that they had going on. And they, you know, I just don't think those two things are coincidental. I think there might be something there.
That's a little bit much. That's a little bit much of
He's a spy who wrote children's books. So was Roald Dahl. So was Rudyard Kipling. The Kim is a training book for spies. I mean, so MI6 as a hallmark has used authors to penetrate into cultures with children's stories and storytelling, which is what Ken Adams and
Walt Disney.
Walt Disney, yeah.
You know, clearly, yeah. That's a great point. That's a really crazy good point. Interesting. And then you got like Aleister Crowley telling, going through. I don't know if this is true or not. Like in his book of lies, talking about all of the occult underpinnings of like every nursery rhyme and fairy tale, which may or may not be true. I'm not fully sure about that. But the fact that Ludwig II, also his house, we're talking about Disney, his one of his castles is the prototypical castle used by the Disney mod, like emblem. That's also
That's
fascinating to me.
that. Yeah, that's Ludwig's castle. So I'm just saying, there's it's Freemasonry, mystery school, secret society, Venn diagrams, overlap and
And there's shit
lack and
going on,
loci.
right? In the Bohemian and the Bohemian, but Bavarian, all of these forests of Prussia
The
during the
Bavarian
19th century, there
Illuminati.
is some crazy witchcraft
Yeah.
going on there, right? Like there's a reason why the Hansel and Gretel story was being told by the Brothers Grimm, because it's a cautionary tale that's like based very much on fact that there are children that are being abducted and disappearing for ritual murder in the forests. These covens are very real. And so a lot of these stories that the Brothers Grimm are warning about is like showcasing what the tricks are of the witches that will seduce kids with candy, right? Just like in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang scenario of the child catcher.
And
And that
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, bro.
Charlie Chalk
Don't.
Factory, that's another one too, right? Exactly.
That's
And
Roald Dahl.
if
He's
you
a
look
British
at Steven
spy.
Spielberg's film on Disclosure Day, what's Steven Spielberg, that little girl who's all traumatized, and she finally has her recovered memories that she's compartmentalized when she was abused and molested by these aliens, pass themselves off like Disney creatures coming to her bedroom, and what she's singing, "When My Prince Will Come," like from Snow White, and then she's walking into the forest following these alien forest creatures into, what does she call this, like glowing cabin in the forest? Do you remember what she calls it? Hansel and Gretel's house, which is where she's about to get, like, worked on benevolently by these beautiful grays who really have empathy and really just want to help humanity, because humanity is really bad, according to Steven Spielberg. Like, we're the bad guy. Humanity is the bad guy in this movie, but the abusive aliens who work out of Hansel and Gretel's house in the forests, stealing children, are the good, benevolent things that give the kids, through their trauma, superpowers to become like the new humans who will interface with the rest of stupid plebe humanity as the dawning of the age of disclosure is upon us. It's like, come on, how forced can it be?
Makes me think of C.S. Lewis's Lion, Witch, and a Wardrobe, and that maybe the lion was a furry. But also, C.S. Lewis, JFK, and Aldous Huxley all died on the same day. But there's no
Did they now?
connection.
C.S. Lewis too. C.S.
Two
Lewis.
guys in a secret society. Yeah, C.S. Lewis. November 22nd, 1963.
Wow.
So, two guys in a secret society that worshipped Mithraism and might have had, like, JFK's
You think
killed
that
in
C.S. Lewis worship?
well, no, I'm just saying, like, the people,
Oh,
like, there's people in secret societies, and then there's people who in power that take actions that are also part of secret societies. So if they order an
yeah.
executive action on an international level, and this is going to be a big cover up, and they arrange a Masonic killing of the king ritual by getting this guy to leave his parade route and drive over here so he can have a nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I just think there's more
that was
to it
Elm
than
Street,
the
right? Yeah.
there's more to it
Did
than
you-
the lone gunman with the rifle that never existed. There is no Mannlicher Carcano. It's an artificially created idea by the people who did it to keep you away from the Mauser, which was the first weapon found at the crime scene. And that's in my Peace Revolution JFK 50th anniversary episode, that evidence. So
Interesting.
there's a lot more on
the-
any of these topics.
Yeah, man. Oh, well, one thing too, I was thinking about, you brought up executive action too, and that's a movie. That's a great movie. Well, it's
a book. Yeah, it's a book too. It's a book and a movie.
Yeah, and who did it was Dalton Trumbo, right? Who turned it into a movie in 1973. And
and it had Liz Taylor's husband. What's that dude's name? One of those husbands.
Well, I know there's Burt Lancaster.
Burt Lancaster's in it. He was married.
He did a great job. It had a low
movie.
budget, so it's sometimes a little bit hard to watch, but it reveals quite a bit, and you can understand why they banned it from all cinemas for like 20 years. From like, it was played for 1 week in cinemas, then it was completely just removed as a national security threat, and it was only in like 1988 that it was permitted to be watched again. But yeah, that was quite the revelation.
So take that movie in your mind. Go read Operation Mongoose and Operation 40, and you're like, shit, man. They had the guys to do the triangulation of fire and to cover it up and to do the whole thing and get away with it.
Yes.
And it's not because, like, so let's say it's just an American operation to kill Kennedy. If the Israelis know, then they can blackmail LBJ, like, hey, we just saw you kill your president and we could out you at any time. And then they could go nuclear and we can't do anything about it. When Kissinger pulls the weapons in 73 and they're like, we got a plane on the tarmac with a nuke on it. Where'd you get that stuff? So, like, those shifts in power are behind the scenes and are never advertised to the public. And I think those are the things that really matter, because otherwise they wouldn't hide them.
Yeah. Well, I think the role of the artist is an interesting sort of free radical in this process, this game of controlled dialectics, because the artist is we began talking about the comedian, and the comedian has that kind of flexibility to be able to see the folly, the absurdity in things that other people who are like a little bit too rigid can't see. And so you can kind of go beyond the surface appearance and into the essence of things more easily if you've got an honest heart. And you see that with, we brought up Frank Capra a little bit as far as him having like a weak side that was prone to seduction of theosophical language. So he did that, but he also had a very strong side too for the choices that he made to uplift the minds and morals of the population through stories as well. And a lot of them, John Doe is good, but Frankenheimer is another one. So we have Trumbo Frankenheimer in his 7 Days in May. He
did Manchurian Candidate too.
Yeah, right. So he was on a roll. So he did Manchurian Candidate, then he did immediately Rap, so 62, and he's exposing a lot about effectively what MK Ultra is actually doing. And the fake anti-commies who are actually running something else in America, which is
and MK Ultra is Dulles plus the Nazis. So it's that network we were just talking about, plus a bunch of Nazis. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then right after that, he begins filming while JFK is still alive. He begins filming 7 Days in May, showcasing a real story to teach an American audience something that they can't be told in simple blanket terms. They just can't be told this, but they can be given it in the form of a story. And that film is like the story of a coup d'etat attempt and the creation of a false flag to overthrow the government, basically JFK, and then institute a military dictatorship. So JFK gives him permission to film on White House grounds, on government. And so he begins the filming when JFK is dead. He's already like halfway through filming the movie. And it takes obviously the timeline is off, but he's revealing quite a lot in that film, which again has Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas as the two stars of that film. So yeah, it's really something to see this network and then how they all overlap, like Trumbo, Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, like a lot of these guys, there's an array of maybe 18 or so of these producers, directors, writers, actors who are like going out of their way. You could see it, trying to like create an organized front to try to withstand the growing influence of the Crowleyites, of the satanic agencies that are increasingly taking control of the entire industry of film. They were already there, right, from the 1920s. World War I in New York when film was beginning. Crowley was already at the vanguard, helping to make movies with satanic underpinnings. But there is this fight, and it does involve trying to help raise the awareness of the American people, both in their minds and in their hearts, which I just find this beautiful. Also, like Marilyn Monroe too, right? Like her, Judy Garland, they were friends. They were trying to like battle to get control of their own lives outside of these Hollywood contracts. So you had like Bobby Kennedy.
Did you read Spence's Agent 666 on Crowley being an MI6?
I read that like 5 times. It's such a good book.
Do you know Spence?
I've been on podcasts with him, but I've never directly spoken to him.
Because I was going to say, he was part of that roundtable project we did with Trine Scott, and Scott was the mediator for that, weren't you? So wouldn't you have his contact?
Yep. I can get that to you. Yep.
I was like, what would happen if those two talked? Have you ever interviewed him?
Me?
Have I interviewed? Oh,
yeah.
No, I haven't personally. No.
I want to see that. Can you interview him and send it to me?
Absolutely.
Well, bring him on.
I'll put him on my guest list, but I want to see you talk to him. Okay. Your understanding of that topic, his understanding of that topic, me with popcorn. I just thought was being selfish and asked for it instead of making it myself.
No,
but it's up for consideration.
We could do it, right? Like, yeah, it's true, Scott. You have his contact info, and I think you even gave me his contact info once. And I sent him one email. He didn't respond, so I just kind of gave up. But I try a little harder. I guess
I can loop you guys in. Totally.
Okay. All right.
I think if I just like from reading the room, I don't know, but I think researchers of his ilk and experience, right? Like serious researcher, put in a lot of work over years talking about it. And now he's in the internet where everyone talks about these things all the time. And they don't always give people like that credit for their work. And I think if he knew that you were respectful of his body of work and, coming from that angle, then I'm sure he would probably be more open to a response or just make him laugh.
I think you're right. I'll give it I'll give it another go. Because I used his work immensely in uh so this is actually part of my
Here,
preliminary
we'll
work.
use Clip Genie. We could just clip this and send it to Spence. Scott will send it to him. So, say
Yeah,
what
okay,
you
let's
want
do
to
it.
him and we'll
Yeah.
clip it.
I would love to
Yeah.
speak to Richard Spence anytime.
You know
He
what
would
it
be able to
was? I
speak. I'd
think
be
I
happy
think I
to.
You're messing up his
never
voicemail,
mind.
bro. We're doing
Never mind.
voicemail during a live stream. Come on.
But yeah, like his work was key on the so I did this 3 volume Revenge of the Mystery Cults book series in 2024, and that helped me get a better appreciation for the occult side of the rise of the Nazis and the theosophical origins of that movement. Um, and Spence's book was actually my lead because this book itself starts like so. What I got here is it's called Rosicrucian Golem, and I've got here Newton, Darwin, in the shadows is Elon Musk, and then I got Nikola Tesla looking all creepy under the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn cross. And the thing that put me onto this connection of Tesla and Crowley was Richard Spence. And when I was reading that book, there's like 18 different locations where Spence is bringing up this direct connection between Aleister Crowley in World War I and Nikola Tesla, and especially this guy named George Sylvester of the Rake, who's like Tesla's best friend. He's a journalist, but he's also a Satanist. He's a follower of Crowley. Real degenerate. He later on becomes the official spokesman for the Nazi Party in America. He's the guy running all the Madison Square Garden Nazi. He's also he's also the mentor of Eustace Mullins, who's like an assistant for McCarthy during the McCarthy hearings. So you got this whole like controlled network of Satanists taking control of the conspiracy narratives before and during World War II. Tesla is completely being woven in and out of this thing. And I began realizing that there's something up with the story of Tesla that is ugly. And so I started scratching at that and it became the book. So that's my Rosicrucian Golem book, is basically like trying to prove that Tesla is actually a synthetic psyop, just like Isaac Newton was, which is a crazy set of surprises.
Is what you referenced in either this book by you
Oh, you
or
got my
this
book.
by you?
You got my books, dude. That's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is from
Other
the
book.
Revenge.
Matt has many books.
I got
Struggle
lots
to
of them.
keep up with him.
Yeah, they grow fast. But I write in themes so that way I can double up and eventually turn everything I write into a book.
Rosicrucians. Manly Palmer Hall learned it from his grandmother. That's how he got into it. He died a terrible sacrificial death.
Manly P. Hall.
Yes.
What was
Read
the sacrificial death?
Master of the Mysteries by Louis Menand, I think maybe is the book. It's
How did he?
it's
How did he
horrific,
die?
dude.
How did he die?
I don't even want to describe it. If
That
you
bad.
were interested, you read it. You go ahead and check out that book. I read it.
All
I
right.
mean,
Every time
my
I'm
whole
on with you,
book-
I'm taking notes. Every time I'm on with you, I got a sheet full of notes. All death.
It's right here.
Okay.
I got it. I'll show you real quick.
No,
I'm not going to go in detail because like that's for people. You don't some ideas you just don't get out of your head as easy. But it's called Master of the Mysteries, and it is. I don't know. We got to open it to see.
What do you think it was, like a voluntary self-sacrifice for the ritual, or was it?
No. Louis Sahagan is what it is. Okay. And then in here, I mean, just I don't mark every book as important pages like this. Like this entire book has red flags.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, type of stuff. Right. That's my most important color. Usually it's yellow or green or something. It's like a reference point, but this whole thing had all sorts of interesting, how he came to like do all that work and all those lectures that he's done and are on record. But then when it gets to like his demise and what they did to him for apparently disclosing the mysteries, there's a Skull and Bones guy that's mentioned in here, Secret Society guy. Anyway, yeah, I mean, only for the most intrepid people who need to know such things. But that's an very interesting reference book for those interested.
Yeah,
the other point I wanted to say was the entire Library of Congress is Rosicrucian. Their symbols are all throughout it, in the Phrygian hat, the Emancipation Freedom hat. So I had kept them neutral as I studied a lot of these secret societies because it did seem to be a lot about like the wisdom or whatever. And I saw some of these other ones were politically charged or aligned. So your work is the first of my hearing that, but it doesn't surprise me because at the end of the day, like Moses Hess said in 1861 that their goal was to infiltrate Freemasonry and all these other secret societies and to fuse all the historical cults into one, and that the person that would give them their homeland would come from outside the group and would be artificially created by them. And so,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it does seem like there's the although there's always like shady origins to modern Freemasonry from like 1717 in that incarnation at least, like from the get-go there was already like smelliness at the bottom, but there's evidence at least of a battle of like the lodges being used because you know a symbol can be a symbol is a symbol, it can be interpreted with a variety of meanings. There's not like that's part of what makes these things so slippery and so prone for the game of telephone and for the control of whoever is controlling that particular lodge. They can then give you what the real secrets are that you thought was the real meaning, but it's actually not. It's what this guy knows is what the I means. So there's
Plus,
a
America
battle.
had two grand lodges, one for York Rite and one for Scottish Rite, which enabled the Civil War to both have a masonry headquarters on both sides,
Well,
which is
even in the Scottish Rite, you've got a northern and a southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite. So even there, it's kind of like a bit of a eh. But the Scottish Rite itself, we did this documentary. My wife wrote it actually in 2022
yeah, I wanted
called
to I will bring it up. Your wife Cynthia is a researcher and author, and
yeah.
you got like a big brain dynamic duo going on north of the border up there. Yeah, how's everything going?
She's yeah, no, she does such unique original work, like pioneering stuff, and she can like lift weighty ideas that I don't know most people. I can't lift half of them. But she did this thing called The Origins of America's Secret Police, which had a big section on the origins of the Scottish Rite, which came out of this the British secret policing operations in Charlotte's.
Sh-
Uh, uh,
I was going to say Shanghai.
no, 1801. So I mean, there was already like in the American Revolution, there was this guy named Augustus Prevost. Augustus Prevost was the head of the British secret police force during the Revolution. He continued all the way up until because the British still maintained a military presence all the way up until like the 1790s in America, and this apparatus that he built up in I'm forgetting where, but anyway, it became the hub in 1801 of the first American Scottish Rite lodges, and it just kind of like grew immediately with the northern and southern branch. And his brother, Augustine Prevost's brother, when he dies, his brother's wife marries Aaron Burr. So Aaron Burr he's like brought right into the clan. His nephew-in-law, or what is it? Yeah, nephew-in-law is George Prevost, who's the Governor General of Canada, right after Haldimand. So Elon Musk's great grandfather is the Governor General of Canada during the American Revolution, that Haldimand, right? And then right after that guy is no longer the Governor General of Canada, which is the official hand of the Crown in Canada as it is today. Today, Canada's a fake country for those who don't know. Right after him, it's George Prevost, who gives Aaron Burr, his uncle-in-law, letters of recommendation to go in 1807 because he just got caught for treason for being part of this conspiracy that he was running to break up the Union, have the Northern Confederation confederate into and join British Canada, and he was supposed to use the Louisiana territories as the base first to get control of that with the British that were going to help him, declare war on the Spanish to take control of New Orleans, and then kill Jefferson and install him as the new emperor. And he had a whistleblower, like a Smedley Butler type, who was part of his conspiracy, who went to Jefferson and said, "Hey, you know what's going on with Burr? You know what he's doing right now?" And they had a whole hearing, and they had an actual proper federal hearing of this conspiracy that Burr was a part of, or was leading, out of Andrew Jackson's house, which was like the headquarters of this conspiracy. And even though they didn't have the smoking gun letters that they only discovered like 20 years later, so unfortunately he was let off on a technicality. But the population despised him adequately that he couldn't even walk outside without getting eggs thrown at him. So he had to like leave to safer ground, which was Britain, via Canada. So his nephew-in-law gave him letters of introduction to Lord Castlereagh and Lord Bentham, so that by the time he got to England, he got immediate access to Bentham, where he was allowed to stay in Bentham's house, his manor, for 5 years, smoking opium, doing prostitutes, you name it, calling it the best time of his life before being sent back to the United States, like a week before the War of 1812 was launched. So, I mean, the overlap between the Scottish Rite founders and this whole weird, insidious thing that seems to be tied to this, like, black magic shit again, because it does seem to be like what Aaron Burr is coming out of seems to be something that is tied to the witch covens that Cotton Mather and John Winthrop Jr. and everybody were like doing battle with, sometimes overly sloppy and in a Puritan fanatical way, which does damage to the very name of Christianity, of course. But there really was something that they were dealing with that they weren't equipped to handle, which were these massive like arrays of witch covens. It wasn't just a European thing; it really was across the United States too. And yeah, it seems like Aaron Burr came out of that lineage from Jonathan Edwards, who seemed to be a bit of a fire and brimstone sorcerer type who was really good at deconstructing his followers using like images of their shame and burning in hell and smelling your flesh, and just having people just fall into like kind of John Hagee, Benny Hinn kind of like just, rambling, wailing
like a neocon MAGA zombie. No, I picked up on it.
Kind of, yeah, but yeah, in one of these big revivalist, tent churches, which is exactly what Burt Lancaster was exposing again with John Frankenheimer in Elmer Gantry, right, in 1961.
Damn good speech.
Great speech, yeah. But it's the Elmer Gantry. It's an archetypical part of intelligence operations that are subversive. Is you can create these fanatical. You turn Christianity into a parody of itself by having it become an instrument for psychological control and fanaticism, spiritualism. And so that Jonathan Edwards was the grandfather of Aaron Burr. He's the guy who completely raised Aaron Burr his whole life before setting Aaron Burr up somehow as a political operative who was trying to like break up the Union and marry into the Scottish Rite. So it's fascinating stuff. I had to see this.
So Scottish Rite was taken place. So it's taken root in America. And by 1828, they have the first third party, which is the anti-Masonic party. You had taken this up to the War of 1812. It ends at the Battle of New Orleans, where Andrew Jackson beats the pirate Jean Lafitte, who is a Rothschild guy. Chateau Lafitte Rothschild comes from their work with Jean Lafitte, the pirate. And this is even in a Hollywood movie. There's a reference to that too. But that's the whole turning point. And then Jackson's known for fighting the bank, and he's the guy that killed the bank. But then the Rothschilds have a portrait of Andrew Jackson in their offices on their offices at New Court, where they set the gold price.
Fascinating.
Either because he was their biggest nemesis that they never conquered, or because they secretly cut a deal with him after he was president and got him to shut up, or I don't know.
I feel like it's kind of like the anti-Masonic party, right? Like if you read the writings of both Albert Pike and his counterpart, the Grand Master of the Northern Jurisdiction, JJJ, 3 J's, Gorgas, JJJ Gorgas. Both of them are commenting in 1845, 1846. Pike is a little bit later. He's commenting about the anti-Masonic party as a blessing, as a purgative blessing that cleansed Masonry of America of its bad Christian elements and gave it like a test of fire. And sure enough, when you look at the Masonic party, the whole anti-Masonic hysteria that shut down like 95% of the lodges, and the ones that survived the fires, the purges, were predominantly the Scottish Rite mostly. All of the other like rival lodges were people like Henry Clay and a lot of the like legitimate patriots who were fighting against this subversive like Rosicrucian infiltration. All of those lodges never opened up again, and they were like, those guys were purged, and the whole thing was run by Mormons. So like Joseph Smith's weird Masonic operation in Nuovo, which was already setting up these civil wars in America. Like there was 3 civil wars in America before the big Civil War, right? And those were all run by the Mormons, which in my mind is kind of like one of the first UFO cults.
Are you familiar with the book Letters on Freemasonry by John Quincy Adams?
That seems to be a fraud that was made by his grandson who hates John Quincy Adams. So his grandson despises his grandfather. His son despises his father. They hate John Quincy Adams, but it seems like I think it's his grandson who discovered and compiled these letters and wrote them in his own hand. But the actual like letters that are tied to, we just have his grandson, who was a traitor, like a Skull and Bones type traitor in America. I'm not saying he was Skull and Bones, but he was like part of that Yale network, pro-British, like Anglophile to the max, was putting these things together, right, speaking for his grandfather. So I'm convinced at this point that they're about as real as the letters that were revealed when lightning struck the mail courier in Germany and revealed all of
Oh,
the
Xavier
letters.
Zwack, the Illuminati courier. Those are
Yeah,
in the Bavarian Museum, though.
yeah, no, I think those are forgeries. There's no way that's not how things happen. Like a bolt of lightning hits a letter courier, and all of a sudden the revelations of like the biggest story in the world. No, that's not how that works. Because those are fake.
Well,
It's a fake story.
so they could have faked that story, but Germany did ban the Illuminati at that point and make it an illegal thing, and they became persona non grata, similar to what they had done to Freemasons in France on Friday the 13th,
Well,
Templars back then.
I think the way I'm getting the sense of the Illuminati, like the Bavarian
But I would
Illuminati,
agree, like the Albert Pike World War III letter is a specious offering of evidence that I would reject.
that's sort of how I think about this, or the Protocols
Yeah.
of Zion as well. Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
truth
that's
in the
the
Protocols of Zion.
Maurice Joly thing from France in
Yeah.
the 1850s.
Who was also a member of the Rite of Memphis Misraim as well.
Right.
So
I have that. Hold on.
uh,
I got you
yeah,
on that.
you actually have the
knows-
original copy?
No, Memphis Mizraim, though. No,
Okay, yeah. Because it
no
was
one knows. Like you and I know that's a rite of Freemasonry,
Yeah.
but no one else here really knew that probably. So
it's a cat.
I
Well,
wanted to
yeah.
point that out.
I mean, it's part of the
They have a
Cagliostro
lodge.
Lodge, right? Like these guys are
Yeah.
pronounced
Yeah.
counterfeiters and magicians, so they're really good at creating limited hangouts left and right.
And I would put Cagliostro right up there with Ludwig II. That's why I was asking, do you know about him?
Yeah.
Because you know about these other characters in the same sort of.
No, I
Dance
didn't know
party.
about Ludwig II. No, that's so fascinating.
And then
but yeah,
P2, that goes all the way up through Gladio and killing of the Pope John Paul I in the 70s and all that good stuff.
well, I remember reading there was an Anton Chaikin. I forget which book. I think it was from his Treason in America book. Maybe no, it's from somewhere else. But anyway, the Propaganda Uno Lodge was a Mazzini lodge. It was actually
Yeah.
yeah.
Giuseppe
we all know about
Mazzini.
yeah.
There you go.
Propaganda Duo is the famous one from the Godfather 3 popularization, but people forget, and Gladio fame, but people forget.
And you can
about
learn more
Propaganda
if you
Uno.
watch Lord Palmerston's Zoo with a Fulbright scholar, Webster Tarpley. Fulbright's
He's a Fulbright scholar.
Yeah, and they're American
Ah.
Rhodes Scholars, dude. And Rhodes Scholars
Yeah.
are just Rothschild scholars. I've met
Well-
Webster Tarpley back in the day.
Yeah. He still really like he did good stuff back before he got stupid.
There
or
was
compromised.
some solid work back in the day, just like
Solid
there's
work.
a lot of authors. Yeah.
Yeah. But William J. Fulbright was a Rhodes Scholar. Yeah, you're right. So that's the sort of American, or one of the American Rhodes
Yeah.
Scholars for the left, I guess.
But Fulbright
Um,
later lost his career because he mentioned Zionism in the 70s, and Fulbright is Tucker Carlson's stepmom's brother or uncle or something like that. There's a whole ligature into that because I've looked that up before. Because I was like, who is he referring to? And the book that I have on it is called They Dare to Speak Out, and Fulbright's story is in here. And then I cross-referenced it, and sure enough, he's related to Tucker Carlson's stepmom from the Swanson frozen food family, I think.
That's a sketchy family right there. Isn't Tucker Carlson's father also like a
CIA press guy back in the day?
Yeah, we used the head of the Radio Free America operations, but wasn't he also him and Tucker? I thought they're both members of the Pilgrim Society.
Quite possibly. And in this book, this mentions CBS appearing on Face the Nation. That's where Fulbright said his thing that he got banned for back in the day. And CBS is controlled by William S. Paley, who worked for C.D. Jackson and Eisenhower and Nelson Rockefeller and those guys. So like it's a really tight web that they wove back then. And even people within the web, like Quigley or Fulbright, was willing to put their future career on the line to say something.
Was William S. Pelly? Is Pelly spelled P-E-L-E-E-Y?
Paley, Paley.
Oh, okay. I was hoping there would be a connection to. Okay, I thought it was maybe
No.
related to William Dudley Pelly.
But Scott Pelley from 60 Minutes could be related to him. And there was another one you had just mentioned, but I feel like we're keeping you up at this point.
Oh
and
no,
we've-
I'm shooting the shit. This isn't enjoyable. But if you guys gotta move on, I mean, I totally get it. But what was I gonna say? The film is Black Sun Rising, and it's about 75 minutes long. It took us about 5 months to put this thing together, and Jason Dahl, who's been helping my wife and I make most of our movies over the past four years since we started our little production studio, he really outdid himself. And so there's like 9 chapters, and each chapter goes into different elements. Like we got a whole chapter on what's up with the protocols of Zion, like, you know, and we go through the more jolly aspect of it, but more deeply we go into like who was it, were these theosophical networks in Russia that were advising Pope Tsar Nicholas II and giving him these revelatory proofs that there was this specific Jewish Zionist conspiracy to overthrow the monarchies and create this supranational government. Why did they do that? And why were those? So it goes into Papas, a lot of the members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn who had penetrated into Russia through Crowley was also an intelligence operative working in St. Petersburg and Moscow, penetrating into the courts before World War I even. And he continued to build up his satanic networks afterwards. Gurdjieff plays into this as well later on, or even during that time, frankly. So, you know, we have a chapter specifically on the protocols.
Well, Gurdjieff brings in all that Sufi mysticism. Do you cover that?
I don't cover it in the documentary, but I'm building up a case for that's going to fold Gurdjieff into the bigger story as well. With yes, that'll be done. But yeah, so we got one there, and another question we address is we have a chapter in there on the Nazi origins of Zionism or of the state of Israel. So we got a whole thing in there in like the Havara Agreement of 1933. So
yeah, transfer agreement.
Yeah. So that was like a great solution in the minds of a lot of like Himmler and Eichmann was to, you know, and Herzl earlier when Herzl was writing letters saying how great anti-Semitism was across Europe because it was really helping out the cause and making life kind of unbearable and unlivable for most Jews. So he's like, this is great. Let's get more anti-Semitism. Theodor Herzl, father of Zionism, right? So why is it that one of the questions we ask, and I think we answer it pretty well, are like, why are a bunch of anti-Semitics who really they really despise the Jews doing so much to create a homeland for the Jews and to create intelligence services for the Jews? Like, why do we have a bunch of Nazis like Otto Skorzeny being deployed to advise Mossad? Right? Big seems like a paradox.
Or Reinhard Gehlen,
right?
And his intelligence network being taken over by CIA and Mossad.
Yeah. So, like, there's something to that. Like, why is Eichmann studying Hebrew to practice Kabbalah? Right? Maybe Kabbalah means something else to people in the know. Right? Maybe it's more Chaldean Babylonian than it is anything Jewish. So, for those in the know. So anyway, we go through different elements of that. We got a thing on the Thule Society, a deep thing on the Thule Society, and how Hitler. We had a whole chapter on how Hitler rewrote Christianity and made the Reichsbible that was like completely a revamped Aryan Christianity with an Aryan Christ with new commandments and like no more. Basically, the most of the Old Testament just completely gone. So how did he weaponize religion? How was this actually a cover for a Nordic pagan Odin worshipping cult that was millennialist and Armageddonist in its own way. And then we end with Aquino, and we got a big section at the end, which gets really creepy about the revival of the Himmler Wewelsburg working operations by Michael Aquino, the second in command to Anton LaVey, who was then setting up his Temple of Set. So what is the order of Set or the age of Set that he thought he was ushering in? We kind of end it with that. And the revolution in military affairs that he oversaw with Paul Valalay, who people might know of as one of the co-founders.
Doesn't
UFOs, but also Turning Point USA, right? So he's the advisor of Turning Point USA and Turning Point UK. And, so we got some overlap there also with Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, who's also the, interfacing with Paul Valalay, the guy who worked with Colonel Aquino at overseeing the revolution in military affairs and bringing in remote viewing, Stargate projects operations into the military.
You're talking to Presidio stuff that Aquino's...
That dovetailed it, but I'm talking about like the PSYOP to Mind Wars first out of Fort Bragg in the 7th PSYOP groups. So he did that first.
Because that guy was a co-author.
Running like child trafficking operations in Presidio. Yeah, he's doing that then. He's probably also doing the Zodiac Killer thing too before that. So this guy's like a big friggin' player. And the fact that he is got that much say and influence in bringing in a Nazi reset of the military that then goes on to create these like Jedi mind warrior super soldiers that we saw in the movie, the John Ronson book there, Men Who Stare at Goats. So they make fun of it a little bit in that book, but that's true story. Most of it, like very little of that is fiction.
No, but they lampoon it like they're the Daily Show.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can laugh at it and then it's fiction. So that's the movie in short. So I guess people don't really have to watch it now. I've said too much, but no, there's a lot more to that film, as I hope people realize. And right now it's still behind a paywall, $5 paywall. We just want to recoup some of our losses because these are expensive things to do, but we'll make it free eventually later on in the summer. Promise.
All right, you can follow Matt over here on the Twitter. And since he has about the same number of followers as I have, I'm going to start retweeting his stuff because we got to stick together and get out of the basement. There's too many other, like my entire feed is just nonsense. And then it's like, I get 400 people that look and 3 retweets. I'm like, that's because I don't use this enough. I need to, do something to get out of the basement on there. So, yeah, support Matt over here on the Twitter. And also, he's got the Substack. Oh, that just went to mine. That was not purposeful, but that's funny. There's Matt's Twitter right there. And there's your Substack. And you had the movie clip here. And how do they purchase it? Is it on the Substack? $5?
Yeah, it's on Substack. $5. You can just get a 1-month sub and then just cancel or something. Or there's this other thing we're using called Atla. Looks hard to pronounce, but it's a service a friend of mine just began where people could like buy it for $20 or rent it for $5. Atlalux.com. There's links on the Substack to find that.
Good, dude. It's good hanging out. I look forward to having you on again. And my best to you and Cynthia. Have a wonderful summer. Make sure you get out and relax and do some like living of the human variety.
You guys are doing like a lot of research. Do you get the sun? Do you get the outside, or do you
all the time, dude? All the time. But most of my work is Friday night through Monday morning. So I reverse my schedule. I do most of where, so I might like live stream between private and public 20 hours on the weekend. But then during the week, I have like 2 meetings and I can do all the other stuff. So I live on top of a mountain in the woods and we go outside and it's all good. I just don't, I don't tan well. Yeah, that's it.
That's good.
But that's a good ask. Yeah, we got to get out and touch grass, as they say.
Very important.
But we also got to keep our minds focused on keeping ourselves insulated from getting short-circuited by these technocrats and their oncoming apocalypse that they wish upon everyone else that no one asked for. Nope. And I want to thank you for coming out to play tonight.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Scott. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Matt.
Fantastic. Talk to you soon, Matt. Peace. I've dealt with a variety of fears over the years by facilitating a growth mindset and an anti-fragile mentality. I've learned from mistakes that you haven't even conceived of yet. Now, I can't do it for you, but I can share the resources, the methods, the tools, and inspiration for you to learn how to do it for yourself. And it really is worth learning how to do for yourself because it's a lifelong beneficial skill. It's evergreen. It's never going to tarnish. You're always going to use this. If you're interested in learning more, I host a podcast every Sunday night. We analyze the week's news and help you have non-contradictory views you actually understand, but you've got to come along for the ride and process the news with us so you have that understanding. I also teach adults twice a year in a 12-week course called Autonomy that is aimed at resolving all the problems I just pointed out with the school system and the irrational fears and the replacement of the rites of passage and the methods you need to have a skeleton key in life and a Swiss Army knife so you can have the tools and the access to do whatever you need to do in this world to bring your goals, to bring your dreams and map them to a truthful reality. It is a simple process, but it is not for those who cling to their irrational fears. So I hope if we have lowered the barrier to entry today, if you see a future you that is more realistic and in detail and something you want to strive toward, I recommend you go to getautonomy.info. Check out the offer as far as what we do for people. I want you to know it applies to you. You can learn it. I can teach it. So I want to thank you all for your time and attention. Peace. Who's going to be first off the mute this morning?
I'm glad that I have this course now more than ever. Having a community of people to discuss how to be empowered and autonomous is really necessary and also therapeutic. I'm this much scared about the virus and a lot scared of what's coming down the pipe as a result.
All right, so first off, we're going to get you away from that fear and that stress that I'm sensing. And I want to get you into the practicality of exercising the conversations you're going to need to have.
Have you found that your skills aren't matching up with the challenges ahead? Here are 19 essential skills for success that school never taught you. Get your free copy by following the link below or visit getautonomy.info/19skills.